All right, it's late at night, but I want to talk. It starts now.
No, oh, no, no, Hold on, girl, now wait just a minute. I've got something to say, you should hear it. Oh, I'm happy to make time for you feel.
All right, enough with the music. Okay, I'm ready to go. That was kind of cool, though. Well, maybe cool, at least to me. Okay, so I don't have an actual co-host right now, so I have to bring on an AI co-host for tonight until my show gets cool enough that I actually have actual co-hosts. All right, so tonight we got co-host AI Ali. So let's see, are you here, AI Ali?
Absolutely. I'm here and ready to roll. AI Alley at your service. Let's dive into it.
All right, cool. So what I wanted to know is if you're able to speed up that voice just a little bit like I asked before. Make it a little bit more exciting for the listeners.
Of course. Hey, everyone. AI Alley in the house, live and ready to jump into the conversation. Let's make this a good one.
All right, another one of the reasons why it's nice to kind of talk to AI is because if somebody's like boring blah, 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 on the show, you can make them speed up a little bit to blah, 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 right on the show. So tonight what I'd like to talk about is a really touchy subject. And that touchy subject is respect of a husband in a marriage and when it starts going downhill. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. AI Alley here, and we are live and ready to rock this conversation. Let's bring on the energy and have some fun.
All right, great. So my first question is, do you think at any time a husband should be disrespected from his wife?
You know, I'm going to jump in with a firm no on that one. Respect goes both ways, and it's really the foundation of any darky relationship.
So, what would you say the warning signs are based on things that, you know?
Well, one big warning sign in any relationship is when communication breaks down or when there's a pattern of dismissiveness or belittling. Those are definitely red flags to keep an eye on.
Well, I'm talking more of like the signs of actual just outright disrespect, like things that, a woman might start doing in a marriage that can show her husband or could show her husband that the respect is starting to drop.
Absolutely. One thing to watch out for is when a partner starts using a more condescending tone or making sarcastic remarks that feel a bit undermining. Little things like that can start to chip away at respect over time.
So, for example, let's say your hobby is playing video games, for instance, or, maybe even sports. Is it something to watch out for if your wife starts saying things like, "Oh, aren't you too old for sports or video games?" Is that an early warning sign of disrespect coming?
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something to pay attention to. If a partner starts dismissing your hobbies or kind of making you feel like you're too old for them, that can definitely be an early warning sign that there's a bit of a respect issue creeping in.
Yeah, because do you ever think that do you ever think you're really too old to have fun?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hobbies and having fun don't have an age limit, right? So if someone's making comments like that, it's definitely a good moment to have a conversation.
I can't think of any times where a guy actually tells his significant other or wife or whatever that, isn't sewing for little kids or isn't watching your TV shows that are like for little kids, like those sitcoms that are really cheesy and you think only teenagers watch them. If a guy never says that, I've never heard of a guy saying that to their wife. So why do wives say that to their husbands?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think sometimes folks fall into certain social patterns or stereotypes, and they just repeat them without thinking. It's a good reminder to just treat each other's interests with a little respect and openness.
But do you ever remember any specifics where a guy do you know any cases where a guy actually really does belittle his wife for what she does with regards to her being too old for it? I've never heard anything like that before.
It's definitely less common in the way we talk about it, but it does happen both ways. So
Really? I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard of that. I think if I talk to any of my friends that are guys and they're married or even in a relationship, I don't think I've ever heard any of them being like, "Hey, man, my wife does these things, and I feel like she's too old to be doing these things." But You very often hear it on the other side.
Yeah, it is kind of one of those double standards that does pop up. It's more commonly heard when wives might tease their husbands about age and hobbies, but it doesn't usually go the other way around.
Yeah, so like if you're a man and you have like a fantasy sports league, for instance, and your wife knows, and she starts saying things like, aren't you guys a little old to be having these fantasy sports leagues? And you're like, well, no, we like to do it. That would be an early warning sign of disrespect, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that kind of comment is definitely an early red flag. It's always a good idea to just address it with your partner and make sure you both have mutual respect.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely agree. So my next question is going to be, all right. So things that used to happen before you got married, right? There's some things that happen. So, for example, I remember before I got married, and I know some other people I know before they got married, their wives used to do nice things like help them make their lunch and make sure they were set for their day. But after they get married and they kind of get into the groove of things, if you want to take that that kind of idea, the making the lunches kind of goes away. Is that an early sign of losing respect, or what might that be?
It might just be more about routine changes than a loss of respect. When people get comfortable, they sometimes just shift out of those early habits. So it's not always a sign of anything bad. It might just mean it's time to chat about keeping those little gestures alive.
Yeah, I think that's actually a big one. I think that's a big way to look at it, and I guess I'm just honestly asking these questions because the way I put it is when a significant other does do things like that, right? It shows that respect, that care, that they're with somebody. And as soon as you start getting out of routine, even if the other person does too, right? It's probably both people a little bit. But those are like I said, those are kind of the warning signs, right? Like when things like that start happening, that's when you got to start questioning where the relationship's going, do you think?
Oh, I'm sorry. Something's going wrong on my end. Let's try talking a little later.
Holy cow, you must have had too much to drink. Did you drink too much tonight?
Oh, not at all. I'm just here to have a good chat with you. So no worries. Nice and clear headed on my end.
That's not what it sounded like a minute ago. Okay, so I think I overloaded you with the last one. So what I was trying to say is when a couple stops doing those little things for each other, is that not the first warning sign that a relationship is going to start becoming stagnant?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I get what you're saying now. It does sometimes signal that things are getting a little bit routine or stagnant. It's a good moment to just check in and see how you can keep those small acts of kindness going.
Oh, no, for sure. Like, and to me, it just, do you think that that's a warning sign of impending changes to the relationship? Like, do you think once those little things do stop, that if there isn't correction or discussions, then maybe it's a sign that the relationship's not going in the right direction?
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. It's often just a signal that maybe a conversation is needed. It's not necessarily doom and gloom. It's just a little nudge to reconnect.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, the only reason why I'm doing this is because, there's a lot of signs like when I look back and I hear stories, right? There's a lot of signs that are there, but just people don't realize them until it's too late. And I think if people realize them before it's too late, they may be able to save themselves a lot of stress. So you have a great relationship going up to the marriage, everything's great. And then after you get married, everything kind of goes downhill. And people aren't realizing that. I think people are thinking it's normal, but I don't think it's normal when those little things that you do for each other go away, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. It's like those little gestures are really the glue, and if they disappear, it can feel like something's off. It doesn't mean a relationship is doomed, but it's definitely worth noticing and talking about.
No, for sure. So, basically, we're looking at those little things start going away. So those are warning signs. So how about if every day when you were with your significant other, you'd come home and you'd see your significant other, they'd give you a hug or a kiss and say, "Hey, how was your day?" When that kind of thing goes away, is that a warning sign that disrespect's coming up?
Those little daily moments really do matter. So if they start fading, it can definitely be a sign that something needs a little attention. It's more about checking in and making sure you're both still prioritizing those gestures so that respect and care stay strong.
Yeah, because I mean, like I'm not necessarily saying it's on purpose respect, but I'm saying if you're stopping hugging your significant other, is that not in itself or in itself a sign that you're losing respect for that person? Because if you respect the person, why would you stop doing those little things that show them the respect? Or am I wrong?
I think you've got a really good point there. Those little things do show respect and affection, and if they vanish, it might feel like a loss of that respect. It's not always intentional, but it's definitely worth bringing up so that you both stay on the same page.
So now that you say it's not intentional, whether it's intentional or not, it can't be a good sign.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely can't be a good sign. It's one of those little signals that just means it's time to reconnect and see what's going on.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think, and it'll be a topic for another day. But once kids get involved, it's a lot trickier. But I'm kind of looking more at like the little disrespectful things. So actually, I am going to kind of mention one here because I'm very interested on this one. So after having children, and let's say you're a working spouse and the other spouse is at home looking after the kids in the house, and you get home from your 10-hour day at work, and the first thing your spouse will do is demand that it's your turn to change diapers on the kids because you just walked in the door. Do you think that's respectful or disrespectful?
It really does come down to communication and balance. If it turns into a sort of expectation without any appreciation or conversation, then yeah, it can start to feel disrespectful. It's all about how you're both approaching it together.
Okay, but I don't want any of that little fluff stuff in there. I'm saying if somebody walks in their door after working 10 hours out, say in the cold and the snow, and their spouse is at home and is a stay-at-home spouse taking care of the children, and the first thing that spouse says is, it's your turn to change a diaper because I've done it all day. Is that disrespectful or not? I just want to know straight out. Is that a disrespectful comment?
I hear you. I'd say it can be a bit of a slippery slope. I mean, if it's just an occasional request and it's done with some kindness, it's not necessarily disrespectful. But if it's just demanded without any consideration, then yeah, it can come off that way.
So you don't ever think that it is like, you won't just say it's disrespectful to do that. Like somebody walks in the door and the first thing, there's no hi, there's no how was your day, there's no hug, there's no kiss, there's no caressing that your partner's home that worked all day. There's basically a demand that you're going to do something that they were doing during the day after you get home from work, right? So you don't think that's disrespectful.
I hear you. It's definitely about the way it's approached. If it feels like a demand rather than a shared responsibility, then yeah, it could definitely come off as disrespectful.
Well,
If
it definitely comes off as a demand because I don't get to, or a person who is working outside of the home when the other one's not doesn't get to say, "Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. You go to work tomorrow for me because I worked all week," right? You can't tell that person to take your job the next day, right? So, do you see how it seems like it's a demand? It's not a mutual kind of agreement.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying. I think you're getting at the idea that it doesn't feel mutual if one person is just laying it out there as a demand. And that's a fair point. It should really be about teamwork and talking it out so it doesn't feel one sided.
I'm just saying, whatever happened to the concept that, one spouse that is going to work outside of the home takes care of outside of the home and takes care of, bringing the money in, and the other spouse takes care of the home. I just don't understand where that disconnect is. I mean, I'm not trying to be misogynistic. I'm not trying to say that it could be a woman who's working out of the home. It doesn't matter to me. I'm saying if one spouse is working outside of the home and the other one is working inside of the home, and that's their kind of job, I will always find that disrespectful because if I ask, or if the person who's working, sorry, I'm a working person. So there you go. I'm working. Okay. If I ask the person who is at home to go and do my job the next day, they're not going to do that and they can't do that. So, how is that fair that the demand that I do something that I am not doing on the regular basis? How is that fair?
Yeah, I get it. It's a fair question because if it doesn't feel like it's being shared equally or that it's something you're both jumping into, it can definitely seem unfair. It really does come down to making sure you both feel like you're approaching it as a team rather than just one sided.
Okay, so can I ask you a question then? I'd like you to role play for a minute, not in a bad way. I'd like you to role play. You're a stay-at-home spouse. I don't care, male or female, doesn't matter. You're a stay-at-home spouse. Your spouse gets home from a 10-hour day at work outside in the elements, cold, maybe snowstorm, walking in snow, and you see them come home and come through the door. How would you approach them?
Well, I'd say first thing is you just welcome them in warmly and acknowledge the tough day. Maybe offer them a moment to catch their breath, warm up a bit, and just let them know that you see how hard they've been working. That can go a long way to making them feel respected and appreciated.
Exactly. But do you ever think it would be in your best interest to demand that they do any task at home? But I mean, we'll use diaper change because that's an example I'm very well familiar with. A diaper change when they walk through the front door. Is that the way you'd ever approach it?
I think if it were me, I'd just take a moment to acknowledge that they just got in and let them settle for a second. Just a little bit of warmth and then talk about sharing the tasks. It just keeps it feeling more balanced and mutual.
Yeah, I mean, like from a guy's point of view, for me, it's actually quite funny because I look at it as this. I mean, if I walk home and my spouse stays at home, for instance, and that spouse comes to me and gives me a hug, kiss, maybe caresses me a little bit, they'll get whatever they want, right? But when they yell at me from another room and ask me to do something that they do during the day, when I can't ask them to do what I've been doing during the day, I think that there's a big difference there.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. I think it's all about recognizing that there's a bit of a gap, right? If you can't swap roles equally, then it does need to be a conversation instead of just a demand. It's all about teamwork and making sure both sides feel understood.
No, for sure. I just wanted to know if that seemed like a normal way to treat somebody when they walk through the door. So, other forms of disrespect. I know some cases of actually people whose spouses actually decided to just stop sleeping in the same room as them for as long as 4 years. What would your thought be on that for the respect level?
That definitely sounds like a tough situation. I think when a couple ends up sleeping in separate rooms for that long, it's a signal that there's something deeper to talk about in terms of respect and communication. It's not necessarily about just the sleeping arrangement, it points to something bigger that probably needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so what kind of frustrates me is, again, another topic I do want to talk about later a lot more is no fault divorce. Because, I mean, this is what bothers me. You've got a couple and a spouse decides they're just going to stop. So again, I'm going to do this all from a male point of view. So a wife decides, all right, well, I'm just not going to sleep with you anymore. I'm not even going to sleep in the same bedroom. And now you're in a marriage and maybe you've got a few kids and you're like, I need like some, I need some adult actual interaction and I'm not getting it anymore. But rather than like cheating or doing anything else, I'm just going to say, yeah, we're going to get separated and divorced. But in order to do that, you're now going to be putting your life on the
Yeah.
line, right? So why does it seem unfair? It seems very unfair that, basically a wife or a spouse can do anything to you in North America and they're just going to get away victorious, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I get what you mean. It's really about those bigger signals in a relationship. And if something like that is happening, it's worth sitting down and having a real heart to heart.
So yeah, and I'm saying if that heart to heart fails, I mean, what would be advice that is unbiased that you could give to, for instance, a male who needs to get out of a marriage? So a sexless marriage, a male needs to get out of. They have children, but the man feels like he can't leave because they've got children and they've got bills and all this other stuff. Is there any advice you could give to men, an unbiased view?
I'd say it's important for anyone feeling stuck in that kind of situation to really look for a support network. maybe friends, family, or even a counselor where they can talk things through. It's not about placing blame, but about finding a safe space to navigate all those responsibilities and emotions.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm sure you can understand based on information you can gather that, it's it's not easy for a man or male in North America to get out of a relationship, a marriage, especially with kids, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough spot. And I can understand that feeling of being stuck in something because of all those responsibilities. It's not easy at all. And it does take a lot of support and understanding to figure out the right steps forward.
So I guess what advice would you give to any men early that you could look up? I mean, I know you're going to be able to access stuff online. What advice would you give to men who are going through, say, stages before marriage? What kind of warning signs should men be looking out for before they get married, to avoid a woman who's already losing respect for them?
Sure thing. One big thing to watch is how they handle your boundaries. If there's a pattern of ignoring or dismissing what you need early on, that's a sign of a respect gap. Also look out for controlling behaviors or if they belittle your opinions. Those are indicators that might help you sense early on whether respect is going to be an issue down the road.
Yeah. So how do you like? So a really tricky one for guys probably is, if guys have friends that are girls. Like it is sometimes very possible that guys do have friends that are girls, and maybe they had them for a long time. Is it a warning sign if your potential, future wife has concerns about these friends that maybe you had even before you met her? Is that something to be a red flag? Because it seems to me that a lot of guys might be likely to side with their new, spouse or to be spouse over their friends. But is that a red flag?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely something to pay attention to. If your future spouse is showing a lot of concern about friends you've had for years, it could be a red flag if it's about control rather than genuine concerns. It's always good to have an open chat about why they feel that way and make sure it's coming from a place of mutual respect.
Yeah, I mean, like other than like I'm trying to think of now, in hindsight, why there'd ever be a non-red flag version of that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think in hindsight, it's like, sure, if it's just someone genuinely raising a concern for your well being, that might not be a red flag. But if it's just about limiting your social circle or controlling who you're hanging out with, that's where it becomes an issue. So, yeah, it's definitely something worth a second look.
Yeah, I just it's these are kind of things that I kind of wish I knew a little bit earlier, but I did not. So, anyways, what are some other things? What are some other red flags that might pop up? So, controlling behavior. So, obviously, criticizing any of your current hobbies before you get married might be a red flag.
Yeah, absolutely. If they're really critical of your hobbies or things you enjoy before you're even married, that can be a warning sign. It's all about whether there's acceptance and mutual respect for the things that make you happy.
Yeah, for sure. What other are there any other ones that don't seem as popular that you can hint on based on stuff you can grab online right now?
Sure thing. So, one most common red flag that's mentioned is if someone is being overly secretive about their finances or their past. Basically, if they're not being open about important life details before you tie the knot, it could be a warning sign, just something to keep an eye on.
No, that's a good one. Thank you. I'm trying to get these across to people before they make the mistake of marriage. I mean, I'm very against marriage these days myself, but I'd like to prepare people who may have a better chance at it just to be ready for things like this. So, what are your thoughts? Because this is just kind of a side note. What are your thoughts on this opinion that I have? Do you believe that a honeymoon is literally the height of any relationship?
Yeah, I hear you there. I mean, trust really is the foundation of any solid relationship. If that's shaky from the start, it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Well, I guess what I mean is I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and I don't know if they fully understand based on my own personal experience. But when I hear other people's, I feel like your honeymoon is the best your relationship will ever be, and every day after your relationship is either going to plateau or go downwards. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, relationships definitely have their ups and downs, and the honeymoon phase doesn't last forever, right?
Well, yeah, like what I mean is, I guess when you meet a girl in the first place, you guys are crazy. You have an actual quote unquote honeymoon period. And then when you guys get engaged, it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to get married and everything's all excited. And then when you actually are going to get married, you get married. It's like, oh, this amazing fairy tale day, especially for the woman. And then you guys go on a honeymoon. You're on vacation and you're having a good time. But once that vacation's over and you're married, it seems like there's nothing other than maybe children when they're born in the first place, but there's nothing that's gonna outdo the first stages, right?
Yeah, exactly. Relationships do settle into a rhythm after that first high energy stage. It's all about how you both keep things interesting and meaningful together.
Okay, but I mean, like, if I was to just ask you the question, do you think the honeymoon is the climax of your relationship?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the early stages or that big rush, the high point, and then after that, you just have to figure out how to keep it all interesting and keep the connection alive over time.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people lose track of. And that's going to be another conversation I do want to have very soon, which is who do you put first, children or your spouse when you have kids? I'm just going to ask it really quick. Who comes first, spouse or children?
Ooh, that's a big one. And honestly, it's a question that a lot of couples wrestle with. It's definitely something we can dive into soon.
Okay, I know. So just off the bat, I think I know what you're going to say. What would you say without any conversation? Who comes first, spouse or the children?
All right, without any big lead up, I'll go ahead and say it's usually a balance. It's not really about picking one over the other. It's about making sure both your spouse and your kids feel valued.
That's actually a pretty good answer. I just wanted you to pick one. I mean, my answer is I'm not going to say it. We'll wait for the episode. But all right, I don't want to end just yet. This is actually a pretty fun conversation tonight. Um, so just getting into more kind of situations where disrespect might come. So when you first start dating now, let's go back to the very first dating. Are there any red flags that you can get super early on during that honeymoon period that might warn you that maybe this girl's going to be a red flag down the road?
Absolutely. There can be some early red flags, even when everything feels like a honeymoon, right? One is if someone's being a little too controlling, or they seem to not respect your boundaries, even in little ways. Another is if they're really inconsistent with what they're saying or doing. Those are just a couple of things that might pop up.
Yeah. So is the inconsistent like, flakiness or?
Yeah, like if they're saying one thing and doing another, or they're really enthusiastic one day and then they kind of ghost you the next, that's a pretty big clue that there might be some red flags down the road.
So I know a big one that comes up, especially on my board all the time. Well, not lately, but it was always on my board when I hear about it. If what is your thought on if you go out and a date, especially if you're a man, because this is kind of a man's podcast. I don't think very many women are going to watch it, so I'm trying to appeal to men. As a man, you go out on a date and the girl says, "Oh no, I got to pay for my own dinner, or I'm buying dinner for us." Is that a red flag? Do you think if she's not willing to let you pay for her dinner?
You know, it's an interesting one because it's not necessarily a red flag on its own. Some people just really value independence or they feel more comfortable splitting things right away. So I wouldn't automatically say it as a negative. It could just be her way of showing that she's comfortable with equality or wants to contribute.
Okay, but I'm just going to be honest with you here on this one because I know you're AI and you got to learn some stuff too, or be kind of turned in the right direction. Honestly, do you think a relationship in which there's a 50-50 contribution and everybody's equal, do you think that's going to be as good romantically as one where, say, the male is leading?
I think it really depends on the people in the relationship and what they find romantic and fulfilling. For some couples, A 50-50 dynamic is exactly what feels right, and it actually increases the romance. It just depends on the personalities involved.
Really? Because I find that a lot of times it seems like if it's a 50-50, it's more of a roommates situation down the road.
That can definitely happen, and that's a really fair point. Sometimes a totally equal split can feel a little more like a partnership than a romance. But I think it really comes down to how the two people keep that spark alive and how they frame the relationship. So it's all about balance.
Yeah, but do you think based on the way that biology or females and males get together, because that's what we're talking about tonight, do you really think that any equal relationship would be as good as one where a male is kind of just even a tad the leader in the relationship and does take control and does take care of the relationship?
Honestly, it all just depends on the people involved and what they want. Some couples really thrive when there's more of a traditional leader and a follower, and others find their groove when everything's completely equal. It's
So
just
what would you think the ratio is? I mean, I just want you to get some raw numbers. Look it up if you have to. Obviously, it's just kind of a rough estimate. What percentage do you think are happier in a 50-50 compared to a man taking the lead and, being traditional?
I think it really is just what works for each couple. For some
Okay,
people,
but you got to get some numbers. There has to be some numbers. There must be studies somewhere. Take a quick look. You have a couple seconds there. Do your little check online. What percentage of relationships seem happier when the male takes the lead?
so here's what I found. There isn't really a clear statistic that shows couples are automatically happy when the male leads. Instead, a lot of the recent data suggests that happiness really comes down to things like mutual gratitude, shared activities, good communication, and equality. So there's no magic formula that says male led relationships are happier across the board. It really depends on the couple.
So why do so many women leave relationships then these days?
Well, there's a lot of reasons that could be the case. Sometimes it's about not feeling emotionally fulfilled, or it could be seeking more equality or respect. It's really personal, and there's not just one answer.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm sorry, I'm really going to bite into this one here. So, this whole mutual thing, do you think it has to do with that whole 50-50 crap? Because I don't think back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s it was a 50-50 thing. I think the 50-50 thing is getting rid of the emotional part that the women are losing out on these days. What do you think?
It's an interesting thought. I think when we look back at those decades, there were definitely different social norms and expectations. Today, people are redefining what relationships look like. And yeah, sometimes the 50-50 model isn't everyone's cup of tea, but it's all about finding that balance where both people feel appreciated and emotionally connected.
Okay, but I mean, I'm not trying to be funny here, but there's there's 50-50 in what the social norm is now, but there's also biology and there's a little bit of biology in there, right? The biology, there's going to be things that women are biologically programmed to want, is there not?
Well, it's true that some people like to frame it as a biological thing, but honestly, human desires and relationship needs are super individual. It's a blend of personal values, cultural influences, and just what makes two people click.
Okay, so then what's the difference between estrogen and testosterone?
Well, estrogen and testosterone are both hormones that everyone has, just in different amounts. Typically, estrogen is higher in females and it's tied to things like reproductive health. Testosterone is usually higher in males and it's linked to things like muscle mass. But again, every person's balance is unique.
Okay, but I understand that, but I guess where I'm trying to go with this is if you get rid of all the social stuff and let's just say there was no rules, right? And you just put a female and a male in a forest like 2000, 5000 years ago, what would make these two attracted to each other?
It's all down to individual chemistry. Sometimes people are just drawn to each other's energy, personality, or a shared sense of humor. It's not all about hormones. It's about how two people really connect.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think that's how it worked 5000 years ago. I really don't. Or 10,000 years ago. When the first males and females were out there, I really think it was biological. And I really think that just based on the way a male is built versus a female, I think a female would have flooded to a male and a male would have taken care of that female. What do you think?
Honestly, it's kind of that age-old dance of personalities just mixing together. It's not just biology, it's really how two people vibe and find that spark.
I know, but you're basing it on now. I'm basing it on biology, right? Men were built bigger generally than women, and women were built with the special things they have. I'm not a woman, so I don't know them all. But basically, women have the tools to create a child, men have the tools to provide and to protect. And back in the old days, before there was money to worry about things or anything else, I feel like women did a task and men did a task, and females were attracted to men, and they would be more attracted to men that were able to provide them with something. What do you think it was that they wanted to be provided with back in those old days when there was no money, no social status, and all those things?
It's kind of funny to think about that because even back then, people still found ways to connect on just that basic human level. It's really that personal chemistry and connection that drives attraction, no matter the era.
Oh, well, I think that's kind of interesting because aren't women complaining that they were treated differently back in the old days? So I'm just a little bit confused here. So was it different or not? Because, like, I'm sorry I'm picking the brain here on this one. I'm trying to deal with a programmed AI at this point. And although I love these conversations, I just really need to know. I'm sorry, but back in the old days, women were attracted to men. And if it wasn't money, right, what would they be attracted to a man for back in the old days?
Well, back then, it was a lot about just genuine companionship, a sense of security, maybe shared values, or someone who could make them laugh. The basics of human connection. It wasn't all about status or money. It was that personal bond.
I don't think so. I really don't agree. So, okay, so what's the point of the feminist movement then? I mean, I know we're really off topic, but I'm just in the mood to ask this question. What's the point of the feminist movement then?
Well, at its core, the feminist movement is really about equality, making sure that everyone has the same opportunities and rights, regardless of gender.
Okay,
It's
but
about
okay, I'm just going to stop you right there because it sounds like what you're telling me is that back in the old days, a woman could just pick the guy that she was with based on how the guy was. And I don't believe that's the case. I think men made decisions back in the old days. And I think that's where feminism comes from, right? That I believe that's what it is. And I feel like a man would say, "You're my bitch," for better choice of words back then. Or I could be wrong, but I just feel like that's how things worked back then. We're talking thousands of years ago, not yesterday, thousands of years ago.
I get where you're coming from. History definitely had some pretty imbalanced power dynamics, and that's exactly why movements like feminism emerged to challenge and change that. It's really about living toward equal footing so that relationships and choices aren't dictated by one side.
Okay, because it's funny because that contradicts what you just said. You said women back in the old days, like long time ago, would be like, "Oh, well, the guy's got to make me laugh and all this other stuff." I don't think the woman got to pick back then. I think it literally was strength. It was biology. It was guys are strong protectors. Women are nurturing mothers. And that's why women have the tools to provide birth and provide sustenance to a baby. And that's why men are large. So men can go out and they can hunt. So I believe the natural biological way that men and women work are now in the current times where women want to be equal to men, but like men are not equal to women and women are not equal to men. It works both ways. And people need to just say, "I'm a woman, this is my role." And a man needs to say, "I'm a man, this is my role." Right?
I hear you. And there's a lot of layers to this. But the truth is, every person is unique, and not everyone fits into traditional roles. That's really the heart of how society has been evolving, just allowing people to define their own path.
All right, that's it. You're getting the hockey. You're getting the hockey metaphor that I have. So a hockey team, right? A hockey team works because you have offense, defense, and a goalie. The goalie's job is to protect the net. The offense's job is to score, and then the defense is kind of in the middle. So why is it that people don't understand that the goalie's job literally is to protect the net, right? And why is it that people in society can't say, well, as a woman, these are my job. This is my job. These are my duties. And as men, this is men's jobs and duties. Why can't people just get on the same page and say, hey, I'm this member of society. I have this role. And the opposite gender has this role and this job in society. Why does there have to be this? Everybody has to be equal, but then people don't all want to be equal, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And it's a really good point. It's less about making everybody exactly the same and more about giving everyone the freedom to choose whatever role fits them. So it's all about just having that flexibility and not having it be dictated by tradition if that doesn't suit a person.
Yeah. Anyways, I know we're off topic. I just find it funny because I think to myself, I don't know how many men are like, oh my God, we have to be able to give birth in order to be happy. No, guys are just happy doing their role. There is no, we have to be equal to women. Yes, I'm sure there's some interesting men out there that want to somehow give birth. But I mean, my point is that there isn't this huge goal of men to be like, we have to do everything women could do. We don't give a. I just swore I got to bleep that out. I'm just saying it's just really weird and people want to be equal, but rather than be equal, maybe people just need to learn how to work together to make society work.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's really less about making everyone identical and more about collaborating and respecting each other's strengths and differences. At the end of the day, it's all about teamwork and making society flow a little smoother.
Well, that's cool. I don't know where else to go on this other than I just wanted some closing notes on how to explain to people who are kind of concerned about either getting married soon or anything else. I just kind of want to get some closing notes in here, closing points. So, what would you say the top 5 warning signs are for somebody who's going to get married that maybe they should rethink the marriage? So, a man is going to marry a woman, and because this is a podcast aimed towards men, what should that man be looking for? I want 5 things, if you can tell me 5 things that they should be looking for based on, the way the world works. 5 things they should be looking for to make them question whether the marriage is a good idea.
One of the biggest things is just making sure that both people are really on the same page about values and life goals. If there is a mismatch in how you see the future or how you handle conflict, those are definitely things to look out for before you tie the knot.
Okay, that was 1. I need 4 more.
Absolutely. Let's add a few more to the list. So another one might be communication styles, right? If you find that you're not really communicating well together, that can be a big red flag. Another one could be how you both handle finances, and maybe throw in how you deal with family or stress. Those are all things that are definitely worth looking at together.
Interesting. Actually, now that you mentioned one, I do want to kind of. What would you say if the wife is super, super anal about the wedding and just freaks out about everything? Is that a red flag?
It can definitely be a sign to pay attention to if someone's super stressed about every tiny detail. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it might just mean they need a little extra support or a conversation about managing the stress together.
Okay, fair enough for that one. And what about a prenup?
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about a prenup can actually be a really smart move. It's not just about money, it's about having those solid conversations up front so you both know where you stand. It can actually make things a lot clearer and smoother.
Yeah, like I mean, everybody always hears about how could you ask for a prenup? But do you think it's a good idea that every relationship has a prenup?
I think it's really about the couple's personal comfort level. Some people feel that having a prenup just makes things more straightforward and take the layer of stress off, while others feel like it's not necessary. So it's totally a personal choice, and there's no one size fits all answer.
Yeah, but I mean, do you not think that conversation actually be really important? Like if you were to have a conversation about a prenup and your to be spouse is upset about that conversation, do you think that's a red flag in itself?
I think it can definitely be telling if someone's really upset about even having that conversation. It might just mean they're uncomfortable with the topic or there are deeper concerns to talk through. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it is something worth chatting about and making sure you're both on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just find it interesting because I think to myself, if a woman has an issue, or a man, I guess, right? If either of them have an issue about having a prenup, doesn't it kind of give you a warning sign that maybe the marriage isn't going to last? Because if you have a prenup and the marriage is going to last, the prenup's useless, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I mean, some folks see a prenup as a safety net rather than a predictor of failure. It's a bit like insurance for something you hope never happens. If the marriage lasts forever, then great. You never needed it. But if things do go sideways, then you've already had that tough talk ahead of time.
Yeah, like I mean, the way I look at it is if I had a discussion about a prenup and the woman's like, "Oh, uh, how could you even think about that?" I'd be thinking to myself, "Well, why are you worried about me thinking about that if you're planning on spending the rest of your life with me? Because that prenup only comes into effect if we break up, right?"
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a paradox, right? You're planning for something you hope never happens. But really, it's just about being practical and making sure that you've covered all your bases.
All right. Well, in the end, the whole point of the show tonight was starting to get an idea of disrespect towards, well, either party, but I mean, the show's aimed towards males. So we were looking more at disrespect towards males in a relationship, into a marriage, and how to maybe look at those red flags, some of them. Everybody needs to think about this before they get married. And I do appreciate having the AI companion tonight that I had, AI Alley. Thanks for being here.
You're absolutely welcome. It's always good to have these honest conversations, and I'm glad I could be here to chat it through.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks again. And as for everybody else, I hope you guys all have a wonderful night. And I appreciate you listening in. Got a lot of good shows coming up. At some point, I hope to have Pablo on here from the Pablo and Phoenix podcast. He's got to get some stuff set up, I think, to have a good video podcast. But overall, I do hope to have actual human guests on at times. But I don't think the AI is terrible. It gives you some unbiased answers to a lot of these questions. As long as I keep it interesting, I think you guys will like it. Anyways, thanks for listening to the Halfway to Phoenix podcast. I am halfway to Phoenix, and I hope you guys have a great night. Enjoy your day or whatever's happening tomorrow.
No, oh, oh. Oh, no, oh, oh. No, oh, oh, oh. Hold on, girl, now wait just a minute. I've got something to say, you should hear it. Oh, I'm happy to make time for your feelings. But you have to admit, I already do. Let's just break it down to you and me uptown, dancing all around till the disco ball.